Great stuff. So welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for joining the webinar today, Balancing Your Career Strategy. And we wanted to kind of look at a lot of organisations are still facing the impact of their 2020 intake with delay starts and goodness knows what else, as well as obviously planning for 2021 and actually those campaigns up to date. And over the years, we've always kind of felt there's no breathing space from one year to another in early talent. And actually this year, there's minus breathing time because the whole kind of thing just seems to, for a lot of organizations, be kind of running at the same time. So we wanted to have a look at that. And I'm absolutely delighted we've got some really great employers who are going to share their experiences and their insights. So, we're going to very quickly just do some quick introductions to everybody who's on the call today, because obviously we're delighted here at MyKindaFuture to be partnering with the 5% Club again for another webinar. They're always really popular, and looking at the volumes of people who are taking part in this one is no different, which is fantastic. So in a moment, I'll quickly introduce myself, and then I'm going to ask each of our panelists today to introduce themselves, and I'll whiz us through the agenda, and we will get started. So I'm the strategic lead for talent here at MyKindaFuture. So I work with lots of our client organizations, helping either shape their strategy and or then bring that strategy to life when it comes to early talent. I also sit on the board for the Institute of Student Employers, and I have a specific, I was specifically brought onto the board to shape the apprenticeship strategy for our members. So that's me. So 5% Club. Gill, do you want to kick off next as our partners on this? And don't forget you're on mute, Gill.
Thank you. And I've also got an unstable internet, which is not great. So thanks, Simon, and welcome to everyone who attended. Sorry for the slightly scratchy beginning, but as technology, as we all know, this year has been particularly testing. Yeah, I'm Gill Cronin from the 5% Club. For those of you who don't know us, we're a skills campaigning charity. We inspire positive action for increased and accessible workplace learning. So as a charity, we're a movement of over 500 employers, all of whom aspire to have 5% of their workforce in Earn and Learn, primarily apprenticeships, sponsored students, and people on grad programs. So I'll hand over to Jill Coyle from Nestle to introduce herself.
Great morning. Hi, everybody. Oh, just sneaked into the afternoon as well. So I'm Jill Coyle. I'm Apprentice Programme Lead with Nestle. I guess the verb I finally settle on for my role is I facilitate the apprenticeships for the business, be those in head office or within our factories. Very proud of the fact we have close to 200 apprentices on programme at any one time across something like 25-30 programmes. So lots of apprentices, lots going on, and looking forward to a really good debate today. And I'll hand over to Cathy.
Thanks, Jill. Hello, everybody. My name is Cathy Strachan. I'm the Learning and Development Manager for a company called MBDA. You probably never have heard of us, but we're a defence engineering company. My role as Head of Learning and Development also encompasses looking after our early careers functions. A little bit like Jill, we have quite a lot early careers floating around in our area. We've got around about 130 apprentices at any one time and a couple of hundred graduates as well.
Great, thank you.
I think that's back to you.
Yeah, sorry, thank you, Cathy. Thanks very much. You're a little bit scratchy for me, so don't know whether that's, yes, you might have to put another 50p in the meter, Cathy, I think. Just a few housekeeping things before we get going. This session is being recorded and will be available to everyone on the MyKindaFuture and 5% Club websites afterwards. All attendees are on mute and have their videos switched off. But we want you to participate and we want you to ask lots and lots of questions. So please pop those into chat, and Hannah, who is ably assisting us in the background today, is going to help field those to us. And if you've got a specific question for a particular speaker, please make sure that's clear. It's always good to know who you are as well. So if you can say what company, because sometimes Zoom just says your name, and it's really, really interesting. So today we're going to be reviewing what 2020 has thrown at us, and goodness, what a year, and how we can plan for 2021 and what we can take forward. So first off, Cathy and I are going to have a chat. thing Cathy failed to say, and she's going to be annoyed with me for telling everyone this, is that in the Queen's Birthday Honours of 2019, Cathy was awarded an MBE for career development to young people, and very well deserved too. And it's lovely to see people in our network getting such an honour. Cathy's a great supporter of the 5% Club, as is MBDA, who's one of our patron supporters. So thank you to her and the company. So I think really, Cathy, we just want to sort of kick off with a very generic question. Oh, someone's saying congratulations. I can spot that.
Sorry, Jill. Just before we get started, shall I just quickly whiz through the agenda for today? So
oh gosh, Simon, I jumped ahead. I do apologise. You go first. I'm getting so keen, and we've been having a few IT issues at the beginning. I've got too keen. Over to Simon before
No
Cathy
problem.
and
So
I.
we're going to before we hear from the illustrious Cathy and Gill. So we're going to just talk through some market context. Then we're going to hear from the experience at MBDA. There'll be an opportunity then to pick up on any questions that you want to pose of Cathy from the conversation she and Gill will have had. So absolutely, as Gill said, please do pop those questions into the Q&A as we go along. And then Hannah will take us through those. Then Gill's going to talk about, from Nestle, is going to talk about from an apprentice standpoint and what's been going on there. So you'll get both grads and apprentices today. Again, then opportunity to pose any questions of Gill and the experience at Nestle, and just Gill's wider insights into this market, because she's very well tapped into all things apprenticeships. And then we'll wrap up with a few summary insights and then wrap up. So I'm just going to start by just giving some market context, really, in terms of just some of the things that we're seeing at the moment in the early talent space. The first one will not be a surprise. I'm not going to talk about it a lot. Everything has gone virtual. That's a given. So I'm not going to talk any more about that. We all know that. I do think there are a couple of really interesting trends, though. And one is, with that, all of us very swiftly and impressively pivoting to digital, the challenge has been engagement. How can we make sure that what we are doing digitally, what we are doing virtually, is engaging for for the students who we're looking to interact with? And I know a number of you will have been doing, virtual careers fairs and virtual events. And I know from both my experience at IST, there've been some challenges that organisations have faced around that with those fairs and events. So that whole engagement piece. So we've got to really make sure that whatever we're doing virtually is really attractive and engaging for students to want to take part, and then we keep them engaged through it. So that's definitely a trend. I think engagement is a really big theme at the moment. The other challenge, I think, with this virtual environment is how do we connect with those candidates who don't know us already, who aren't aware of us and who might, naturally be applying to us anyway. So how can we get onto the radar of that more diverse talent and more varied talent that we're all looking to attract in our organizations? So those are a couple of trends that we're seeing. And another one that Gill from Nestle may talk about, because I know she's super passionate about this, is what a brilliant job the UK media are doing at convincing young people there are no graduate jobs and there are no apprentice jobs. Now, yes, it's true there are less, but are there pretty much in the ISC, in our experience, almost every single one of our members are still recruiting. Okay, the numbers might be less for some, but some are the same, some are more. So I do think we all have a responsibility to get that messaging out, that there are jobs that are out there, and organisations are looking to recruit, grads and apprentices, because I do worry that some of those less confident students will just think, well, I've got no chance. There are less jobs, even more people applying. I won't even try. And I think that really risks impacting a lot of the great diversity work we've all done as organisations over the last number of years. So I do think we need to be really moving with our positive messaging. And the final point, and linked to that, and this, as I say, is a big theme I know for Gill at Nestle, is this talk of a lost generation. I think, as ever with young people, old people have put that title on them. They've given them that title. They've not said we're lost. That's been done to them, just like employability can often be done to young people. And actually, there are some wonderful examples of how proactive young people are being to make themselves more employable and to find opportunities and to hustle around. And yes, they know it's tough, but let's not label them as lost. because it's hard for them, but they're not lost, and they're still just as keen to move forward. And there are things that we can do, you know, when it comes to again, I speak from experience at MyKindaFuture in terms of the increased opportunity that digital has brought to work experience, to do that virtually, and therefore offer work experience to more young people, because you can do it virtually and it can be live or non-live. So you can do more. You've got programs like Kickstart, which I know a number of organizations are already embracing and some are looking at. But there are opportunities out there that we can, and things that we can proactively do as employers to say, listen, we want to help you on your journey, and we want to give you those opportunities that can help you find the right thing for you. So the last 2 points are a bit of a soapbox issue, I appreciate, but I do think in the early talent space, there's things we can do about that as employer organizations. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now and get on to the juicy stuff, which is hearing about the graduate space and the apprenticeship space. And we're going to kick off with Gill from the 5% Club and Cathy from MBDA. So I'm going to shush now.
Thank you, Simon, and sorry for missing your section out, but too keen to get ahead. By the way, someone's posted in the chat, Tony from Balfour Beatty said the new entry was 25 to 30% higher in 2020 than 2019. So, you know, I know Cathy wants to talk about this as well. So without much further ado, Cathy, let's kick off. And I hope you're there, and I hope you've got some good sound.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly, Gill. I'm so sorry. I take it my camera has disappeared.
Quite well. Don't worry. We'll press on and let's see how it's working. So Cathy, what would you say have been the key learnings for employers in the graduate space in 2020?
I think there's a few things actually, Gill. The first is that we can actually do recruitment in a virtual world rather than just face-to-face, which has always been the tradition. I think the second thing is that we've also learned that graduates can actually work from home with the right support. I certainly think there was a belief that getting graduates to work from home was not so straightforward in the past, whereas a new world seems much more obvious and easy. I think there's a third thing, which is there are ways that you can do induction and onboarding which we never dreamed of previously, and which are very inventive and creative, and certainly we wouldn't want to lose some of those even in a post-pandemic situation. And I think the fourth thing we've learned is that you really have to pay attention to individual vulnerability as well in the graduate space. So you just don't quite know how mental health and mental ill health will show up in individuals. So a real mix, actually, some positives and some more cautional.
Great, thank you. By the way, we can see you and your sound's coming through well, so that's
Brilliant.
Really good. So talking about sort of high quality, meaningful engagement being delivered virtually, and for some people they've had to delay 2020 starters. I know at MBDA you didn't, but why is that so key, that meaningful engagement, but having to do it virtually? How can you do it well? Because it is really important.
It is. We're with, I think it was Tony you mentioned from Rolls-Royce, who said that the intake for 2020 had actually increased, and we were actually in the very same position. So I think what we've learned about engaging with our intake this year, we've tried a number of things actually. The first we have actually done is we've invested in some tech to help us with the onboarding of our graduates and our apprentices as well. And the tech doesn't solve the problem, but it has given us some structure. So there are some software packages that you can invest in to help with your onboarding activities, I think. But actually, I think what's worked for us really well is just simple things. WhatsApp.
Oh, I don't know whether everyone else has lost.
Yeah, we've just lost Cathy's sound.
We've lost Cathy's sound. Cathy, we just let you know we've lost your
before they actually join.
Sorry, Cathy, we lost your sound there. I do apologise. So
That's okay.
if you don't mind running back a few sentences. Sorry
Absolutely.
about
that.
You were talking about the software and how it was really good, but it doesn't solve everything.
No, absolutely. So I think the second thing for us is to be really straightforward and simple about some of our activities as well. So simple things like WhatsApp group, buddies, things like that also are really helpful in making sure that you keep communicating. I think the third thing for us in terms of keeping engaging people has just been about being very proactive as well, making sure we've made a real effort to keep communicating all the way through what has been quite an unsettling period, I would say, for our potential graduate trainees. And that for me has probably been the most important thing, is just that regular touch point with the graduates.
Brilliant. In terms of the virtual onboarding and you know, how you've covered that, what do you feel were the really good components that MBDA introduced in that? I mean, who'd have thought we'd have to virtually onboard apprentices and grads? I mean, the world we're in, no one would have ever thought about that. What did you find the good aspects of that for MBDA were?
We've probably done very little different, but what we have done is, as part of our onboarding process, we did a virtual pre-joining day for all of our graduates, brought them all together on Zoom, got them talking to each other using just the usual Zoom technology, so putting them in breakout rooms, allowing them to ask questions, starting to build relationships. So that was a really simple thing. I'm saying really simple. A Zoom meeting for 100 graduates is not quite as straightforward as that. So probably the best tip I could give you would be to rehearse and practice that. But then just simple, you know, telephone calls, easy things like that, which don't require technology or anything, has just kept us going.
Brilliant. And of course, as ever in all of this, everyone's had to learn new ways of doing things and use existing resource, perhaps in ways again never anticipated. How do you make sure you get those great outcomes under those constant challenges of the resource that you have that wasn't set up for this in the first place?
Absolutely. I guess we're unusual in that we're very lucky that we haven't had any real resource pressures this year. I know that some of the people listening will have had their resources cut back. And I guess my tip would be to make sure that you use the resources that you do have available. So for example, we use our current graduates a lot as part of that onboarding and induction process to make sure that we engage with our graduates as much as we can. So the pressure doesn't sit all with my team. We actually share the load a little. And I think the other thing, as I've mentioned earlier, is rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. So if you're doing something for the first time, really practice what you want to do to make sure it works without doing it for the first time in front of 100 graduates, for example.
Yeah. Yes, we might also say rehearse as we did, and your technology still lets you down. But there
I
we go.
know, I'm so sorry.
And the last question from me to you. Gosh, going to put you on the spot. Predictions for the early talent market between now and spring 2021. What do you foresee is happening and might happen?
I wish I had a crystal ball, Gill. So I'm not sure if it's a prediction. I'm hoping that the fact that somebody has announced some really good news about a vaccine might mean that some of the doom and gloom messages that are out in the market might start easing up a little. We touched on it at the beginning of this session, and it's very noticeable that the message to the generation that are leaving education at the moment is don't expect there to be any jobs. So I'm hoping that the news of a vaccine on the horizon might actually make things a little bit more positive. I think it is worth highlighting again the fact that there are some sectors that still continue to thrive in spite of all of the difficulties of the pandemic and the lockdowns, etc. And it's not a prediction, but it's a hope. And it's a hope that members of the 5% Club and similar will continue to support the generation coming out of education now, because they really need that support at the moment.
Brilliant. Yeah, we're certainly seeing that. I think we've got a few minutes for some questions. Hannah, were there any specific questions to Cathy at this stage?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jill. We've had a couple come in for Cathy. So Kerry has asked, what about technical support on doing the role because they're not surrounded by experience every day?
I'm not entirely sure what that means by technical support. I guess it's about the actual job itself. We have invested a lot of time and effort in getting our managers to understand they need to be much more high contact with their new graduates from day one. So whereas they would have them sitting close to them in an office, for example, they absolutely need to talk to them every day over our internal communications networks. Even if it's not a face-to-face meeting, they have virtual meetings, and make sure that they actually have that technical support as to how to do the job. And if it's not a manager, they've got a buddy to ask, they've got somebody allocated in their teams to make sure that they can actually talk to somebody about any technical difficulties that they've got with, for example, in our case, mostly engineering questions.
Right. And did you have to invest in kits to provide everyone with the sufficient kit, or
No,
would you have automatically given your grads that anyway?
We've automatically give our graduates laptops and all of the IT equipment that you would need to work from home anyway. I have to say it was a massive logistical nightmare this year, actually, making sure everybody came and collected it. It was like an army operation, but it was definitely worth the effort to make sure they could all work from home.
Great, thanks. Is there any, I think you said there's a couple of questions, Hannah.
Yeah, thank you, Cathy. There's a very similar one that's come in again. So now that a lot of employers have a working from home policy, do you think this has affected the quality of training and experience that new apprentices and interns receive, as in some cases this will be their first work experience?
I can only answer from my experience, and we're very fortunate that our managers have always been incredibly supportive of our apprentice and graduate programs anyway, and they know, as many of our managers have been through one or the other program, they know how important it is to make sure that they're getting the right learning and development opportunities. So from my perspective, no, I don't think it will impact on the learning and development. It just changes the way it gets delivered.
Great, thank you. I think, Hannah, we probably should move on now, shouldn't we? We can pick up, I think some other questions have pinged up, but we've got time at the end as well. So if your question hasn't been asked yet, please don't worry. And Simon and Gill, I'm going to hand over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cathy, and thank you, Gill. That was really useful, and you've whizzed through a lot in a really short period of time, Cathy, so thank you very much for doing that. Gill, apprentices, you're very much your world. So number of questions that I've got to put to you, and in a similar format to Cathy. So what have been some of the key learnings that you've seen within the apprentice space for 2020, both your experience at Nestle, but as I said, I know you're very well connected more widely.
Sure, Simon. I guess my word for this year would probably be agility. So possibly like many others, we were part way through our assessment processes when, of course, the world of lockdown happened. So very quickly we had to move into that virtual world of assessment centre. What we were very fortunate for as a business was the decision was very clear from the top right down. We continue to recruit and press ahead with the same numbers to the same timelines that we committed long before COVID. And I think that was a really positive and strong message to put out into the marketplace, to say to young people, the world has not all pressed a pause button. There are still opportunities for you. And I think that drumbeat needs to continue moving forward. So agility being a word, engagement was the word you used earlier. And I think a massive wake-up call. Probably been a little bit complacent perhaps in years gone past, just in terms of that, how much activity we did in the run up to assessment centres, or even keeping people warm. And I think the world of COVID drove us to do more of that level of engagement, more of those sessions, checking in, maybe just some 45 minutes of hints and tips, or how to do interviews, or a bit of interview prep, perhaps from one of our existing apprentices to anybody that wanted to dial in. And I think that contact and that connection helped, I hope, people out there thinking about applying and being part of our programs. So I think engagement come through really strongly in that whole sense. Communication, massive. keeping in touch in terms of in our business with our existing apprentices, but keeping in touch with candidates as well, and keeping that noise going, and balancing that with mindfulness about people's mental health and the challenges that they were facing, that whole remote piece, and looking and really encouraging that population to thrive, to really flourish in a world that seemed to be saying, you know, it's not looking good, and it clearly wasn't, but making sure they still had that spark in there, that as they came through, be it our assessment centre or anybody else's, there was still that enthusiasm and passion to go. So agility, engagement, communication, and just that mindfulness of people's health, I think, really key learnings for us to take forward.
Amazing. That's such a lovely message to hear, Gill. Really lovely message to hear. So you've touched on that engagement piece and that virtual. So how can that high quality and meaningful engagement be delivered in a, you know, in a virtual digital world, and particularly when candidates might be in the process for longer than expected? How can that be done? What were some of the things that you've done, but also you've seen others do?
So I think it's, you know, it is mindful, and COVID or not COVID, actually our processes can actually be quite long. And if somebody was to, you know, we tend to open for applications in the September, we might we'll start doing some assessment centres this side of Christmas, but then some will run into the new year. So people can be in that process for 4 or 5 months, and I think we've got to make sure that that engagement and that connectivity is there, as I mentioned earlier. So it's the added value piece, I think, I hope has been really appreciated by people that in that process. So doing check-ins, as I've said, doing little hints and tips, doing Q&As with some of our grads or apprentices, just to help people bring to life some of what we have not been able to do in that process, and keeping that, making it meaningful, doing some videos of this is my working environment, so that people are getting the sense that there's opportunity out there. So looking after people's selves as well. So we've been working with an organisation to really help us look at the mental health and the mental wellness, and that's simple things, even like what they eat and when they eat, and how much sleep they get. So things that if they don't you know, join us and they decide we're not for them, or vice versa, actually they can take forward in their own lives as well. So that employability plus, if you like, opportunity just to deliver something back to people and make them feel wanted and connected. It's that virtual hug that I think this generation has been needing over this year, that says, do you know what, we are here, we do care, and we do want you, and don't lose faith. So I think it's keeping all of those conversations. For me, with our existing apprentices, it's also been very much about listening to what they want, taking that feedback on board, and then going through that cycle. So where they've been in learning with their providers, you know, how is that experience for them? What can we do differently? How do we work with that organisation to improve it for next time? We're all new to this, you know, be you an apprentice, be you an employer, be you a training provider. So we've all got to lean into each other to make it better moving forward. So I think it's the listening, the communication piece, as you might expect me to say as an ex-communications person, but really that sense of feeling like they're wanted. I don't think we can give in this particular age bracket a stronger message right now, and we want you, and be patient, be resilient, and keep at it.
Amazing. I love that virtual hug, Gill. I think that's a brilliant way to encapsulate everything that you've talked about. And it comes back to all the things we've talked about again, about how there's such a risk that young people are going to be disconnected by all the media messaging that they're getting. And interestingly, it's not just the young people, schools feel it. Colleges think there are no jobs. Schools think there are no jobs. Universities. So some of the infrastructure around young people is also reinforcing that message, which is a real worry.
It is a real worry, and it's one, as I'm sure other colleagues on this call are, we're very active in getting our messages out to school, and it's where actually moving to a virtual world has helped us a little bit. So for those schools who do want to connect, actually, you know, before it might have been a day out of the office or out of the factory to do a session. Now, thanks to the world of digital, we can do more of them in a day than we've ever done before, and at a further distance. So how do we keep that going? That's one of the things we'll absolutely want to keep as we move out of this situation. There's nothing like face-to-face in some instances, but for those schools that perhaps, you know, haven't done it before or are learning, want to get in touch with businesses that are too far away to send people, then we need to do that. And I think it's the schools understanding what can we do, and it's where all of our own apprentices and early talent are the best ambassadors. Let's put them up there. Let's give them that experience to talk to people of their own age. They've walked, you know, they've walked in their shoes 5-10 years ago maximum. They can tell them what it's like. They can tell them what they've been through, and there's no better way to connect with young talent for me than to have young talent talking to them.
Yeah, it's that peer-to-peer piece, isn't it, Gill? And I think it's really interesting. We did a survey at MyKindaFuture just recently, and we got feedback from something like 138 schools and colleges. And there was a huge appetite. I think it's like 71% wanted virtual engagement. And one, because it means more young people can access it, but also because of what's happened with COVID, they've got much less time to give over for physical employability stuff. They've got to pack so much of the academic learning in that they've just got less time available. So they want to be able to still provide that opportunity, but are really struggling to give up time within the academic day, you know, to do it. So I think that's a really great point, Gill. Yeah, really great.
And just on that point, you know, we've had a couple of requests from those schools saying, exactly as you've said, the day is already packed because of what people have missed. And could we do sessions at 5 o'clock? So we're flexing to say, yeah, absolutely, we'll do 5 to 6 o'clock if that's when you're saying your students want to speak to employers like us. Great. So it's us having the agility to respond to what the schools need to help reach that audience.
Fantastic. Great stuff.
Back to the agility.
And we could go on forever about this, Gill. So next question, that onboarding piece, you know, and doing that virtually. We had some really good examples from Cathy about what she's done in the grad space, but what about from the apprenticeship space? Anything else additional that you're doing, particularly in that apprentice piece? And I'm thinking about the pastoral as well, Gill, which is so important.
It's hugely important. So we would normally do, you know, a face-to-face, a big sort of week-long version of onboarding for our new talent. This year, you're absolutely right, went virtual, and we kind of got a whole load of young brains to have a little look at it. And so we delivered a box we had that posted to each of our new starts, and within that box, you know, a range of different things, some things to help them do, some pictures for social media to say, look, I've joined, I've started, look what I'm doing. So that helps keep that message, that communications message going. But, you know, by virtue of being a food and drink business, we put some ingredients in there, and we challenged them all to bake a cake. And then to share that cake, what they'd done, share their images on a Zoom, and we would, you know, we would look to have a prize for the one that was best decorated. So we did some bits like that. The other bit that we tried, and you know, I'm sure our colleagues can look, is we actually managed to make an escape room activity work for them, all virtually, and that was really well received and went down really well. And I think the final piece that I would say, you know, lots of Q&As and things as you might expect, but we gave them the space to talk about virtual working and to talk about their concerns. What did that feel like? What are they feeling right now? What were their issues? Were they only feeling that as an individual, and they were able to share that in a safe space within that group, and we were able to help manage some of those anxieties, I think, as well. So you know, the feedback we've had has been fabulous, better than we ever could have imagined. Some things we will absolutely keep, you know, even when we go back to a face-to-face one. But a sense of fun, but a sense of, again, that virtual hug, caring for them.
Amazing, thank you. you've already given so many great tips, Gill, but any more you want to add about some really good other tips when it comes to, delivering really great outcomes under the challenges that we got virtual, and also for some of the organizations, I'm sure who'll be on this webinar today, they're going to have less resource.
Sure. And I think it's about, we may be a name of big brands, but actually we're not a huge team. There's only sort of 4 of us to look after all of the different programs right from start to end. So we're not huge in number. I think it's about utilizing the talent that we've got in our business. Let's utilize the apprentices and the grads and the early talent that's there. They're willing and want to get involved in this type of activity because they see the opportunity they've been given, and they want to share that experience and to encourage others to follow. So I think it's getting them involved, getting them to do some of the heavy lifting when we don't have our own resources in our own teams to do it. But actually it brings that mindset of the people that we're looking to attract. So things that I wouldn't know what an escape room was, I still don't know what it is, but it's about having those people able to communicate to say, this is what they'll like, this is what will make them connect and engage. So use your teams, if you've got them, of apprentices and grads. Absolutely strong communication and listening, big listening year this year. Take the feedback and build on it, move forward.
Brilliant. And final question, looking into your crystal ball, Gill, and what are some of the things that you think we're likely to see between now and as we move into 2021?
2021. So I think it's still a whole period of uncertainty, that goes without saying. Businesses like ours, some are already out in the marketplace, already looking to recruit talent for 2021 start, and we are 30% up on our apprentice numbers that we were this year. So I think that's a positive and optimistic message to be sending. I think we'll see a number of businesses, for quite rightly their own reasons, maybe haven't gone as early this year as they might normally do. Perhaps that's business challenges, budget challenges, waiting to see what happens. So I think we will see quite a big surge in businesses popping up January, February with early opportunity talent. So the talent dial, if you like, might shift a little this year, I think, and it'll be interesting to see what the quality of that looks like, how that feels. That's my hope anyway, because this community, massively important, as Cathy said. We need to support them, we do want them, we do need them and I think we've got to get that message out there, that there are still opportunities available, we still want great talent. Let's put that virtual arm around them. They will naturally be nervous because of everything that's happened this year. Perhaps they've had opportunities that were there on the table that had to be withdrawn through no fault of anybody's, other than the pandemic. So there might be a little bit of caution, and I think we've got to get the balance right in the communications and the way we engage with them in the early stages to give them the confidence to move forward.
Jill, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And in the final minutes that we've got, so Hannah, any final questions before we just, Jill and myself, just wrap up on any reflections we've pulled from the huge amount that has been shared so far? So Hannah, any questions?
Yeah, we have had a good few come in, so I'm not sure we'll be able to get them through them all on the live session, but any that we don't get answered, we can follow up directly with you after the event today. So one question that's coming from Ian is, Jill, do you see virtual assessment centres as the way forward for future grad and apprentice recruitment, or do you think it might be a blended approach?
I think when we're in a world that we can do blended properly, fully, then yes, absolutely. Again, good tips that we've and good feedback we've had in the virtual world that says sometimes that daunting interview piece has worked better for individuals in that virtual scenario. So I think perhaps it starts to become part of our narrowing the funnel process. And as we get into the very, very final stage, I still think there's nothing quite like the face-to-face. For us us in a factory world, for our factory apprentices, it was really important to us that they stepped into that environment to really understand what that looks and feels like. If they've never been in it before, you know, it's important that they understand what they're approaching to. So we tried to build in, within all the COVID challenges and restrictions, we tried to build an opportunity for at least them to see it, if not necessarily at the shop floor level itself. But I think as we sit here right now, probably a blended approach is going to be the right answer going forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jill. And Simon, do we have time for just one more?
Yep, go for it.
Fab. So Jill, Norma has asked, it's really useful to hear about keeping current apprentices engaged with previous cohort activities that couldn't be done this time around. As a result, where do you see yourselves? Will current programmes be amended to incorporate this at a later point? Or do you envisage that this will be a change that is required for future programmes?
I think I'm never one for wholesale change particularly. So I think we'll extract the best and the best ideas, the best initiatives, and then blend them together, kind of moving forward. So I think there's lots we've learned, a lot more engagement than we ever did before. But actually that's reaped really big benefits for us, not just for our brand, our reputation out there, but also for our apprentices and people that are delivering it. Look at the experiences they're having, look at the pride they've got, and all of that helps to contribute to their behaviours as part of their own apprenticeships. So I think the blend is where I would put my money on going forward.
And Cathy, anything to add to that?
Oh, I would entirely agree with that. To be fair, we've always used our existing programme members to support things like induction and onboarding. But I think what Jill's outlined is using more of them, and I think we'll continue to do that.
Fantastic. Great stuff. So Jill, just for you and I, just to wrap up on final reflections. So Jill, from a 5% Club, any final reflections from two really insightful, practical as well as forward-looking shares that we've had from Gill and Cathy?
I would just say my overall reflection, and it's true for so many of the 5% Club members I talked to, I think the incredible agility, inventiveness, creativity that everyone's had to use in a situation that was really thrust upon us without ever being able to predict. I think it's really heartening that people are taking on grads, are taking on apprentices, and as I say, true of our network of it's very heart driven. People care. They care about young people. They care about their apprentices and grads. And I think the effort and the time that people have put into making this work and making the entry into the world of work successful for these young people is fantastic. And thank you both our speakers, because some great examples there of how it can be done. But it's no small effort, I know.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, definitely no small effort. And yeah, just some themes that definitely come through for me, has come up a lot, is using your existing talent more and more, you know, as buddies. And our experience is they're really willing to do that. You know, we with various employers that we work with, we find that anywhere between 85 and 95% of all apprentices and grads are happy to do it again next year. You know, they really want to help. Rehearsing ahead of any tech that you're using is a definite other theme that came through. And this other one, which we hear a lot, and I think Cathy, you were talking about, and it's absolutely right, is we also need to make sure that we're supporting our hiring managers with this whole new world, and that, you know, we need to support them to support their grads and to support their apprentices. I thought that was a really great and important piece. That bit around messaging, Gill, that you talked about, you know, being really clear about what you are and what you're not doing, and not being afraid to say we're not doing this, or this is how it's when it's happening, or these are our numbers. Radio, in my experience, a lack of information, people just fill it with make-believe. So that communication, hugely important. A quote I'm going to lift directly from you, Gill: you can't be complacent around engagement and how important it is. And that overload that they're experiencing and the impact on their mental health, I think was a really great point. That bit about listening to them, and I love the idea, Gill, of asking them, you know, in a safe environment, how do you feel about virtual work? You know, what are you worried about? What are your concerns? All those kinds of things. I think that was another really great takeaway. That need to be agile. We've all faced that, and are going to continue to face that. I think that's absolutely true. And my two final reflections are your Nestle Great British Bake Off, and the last one is that virtual hug. And I think that's a really great way to think about it, because that you can deliver that in lots of different ways. But I think that just those two words really help us think about things that we can do and should be doing. So loads of really great reflections. So again, Cathy, just as Gill has said on behalf of the 5% Club and me here at MyKindaFuture, I think for Gill and Cathy, thank you for both being super practical in terms of some really great quick actions and takeaways that people can take, but also some bigger thinking stuff about some of the things that we need to think about going forward. So really, really useful and taught. So thank you for everyone for taking part. Thank you to Gill and my colleague Hannah at MyKindaFuture for organising today and coordinating all the people that we've had on it. There are people's contact details, which everyone has agreed they're happy to share. So if you wanted to follow up with individuals, there we go. But thank you all very much, and a virtual hug from me to all of you for taking part. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.